Hi, my name is Fred Chu and my video is on the science research presentation. Board organization, board color, presentation skills, the lightning round, frequently asked questions, and the layperson summary. So, we'll start off with the poster board itself. This is the only visual representation of your accumulated work over the past months, so it's absolutely vital that you keep this clear and legible to any judges. Keep in mind that all text on the board must be 100% legible to any elderly judge. This, for example, is not. The judge must be able to see your work in order to grade it. As Mr. Guastella often said, if your text is too small and the judge has trouble reading it, he or she will be reminded of how old they are and will be put into a foul mood before your presentation even begins, which is definitely what you do not want. The recommended sizes for the different parts of the board are around 72 for the title, between 28 and 40 for the text, but don't go smaller than 28, and around 28 as well for the captions. The recommended font is Arial. At the end, shrink your bibliography into whatever room you have left over, or just select the important ones and put it into a selected references section. It's okay since no one really looks at these anyways. One more thing to keep in mind. The text should not be extremely cluttered together to the point where it's overflowing. This includes pictures as well. This only leads to confusion, as the judge will have trouble finding his or her way around the board, and will just end up looking messy. However, on the other hand, there should also be no large and awkward empty gaps on the board, as this just makes the board look incomplete and scattered. Another recommendation is to group the sections of the board together with text bubbles as shown. This assists with the cohesion of the presentation as you move from section to section, as shown here, with the bubbles, without the bubbles, with the bubbles. Moving on to the color scheme of the board. Do not do this. Do not use a gradient, and do not use super bright colors. Keep the color of the board consistent throughout, and make sure that despite whatever color you choose, the text is clearly readable. Don't let it take away from the actual presentation. You can literally pick any color and make it faded and it'll work. If you're using bubbles, make the body slightly more faded than the background and the border slightly darker, and voila, you got a great looking board. For example, look at all of these possibilities. In reality, even if you pick a random color and you lighten it up enough, the color scheme will look good. Hopefully this reduces the amount of light blue boards running amok. For the 3-minute summary or lightning round presentation, a rough outline of how to budget your time would be around 20 seconds for the need and knowledge base, 40 seconds for the purpose/methodology, 50 seconds on the results, 50 seconds on the discussion with a restatement of purpose, and 20 seconds on the conclusion and future studies. So emphasize the purpose of the project and the amount of work put into it, as well as the real-world significance over everything else, as you only have a limited amount of time to get the main message of your study across. Remember, you have only 3 minutes to convey that to a panel of judges, so make sure they know the hard work and knowledge that you've accumulated when researching this study. So, moving on to the most important part of the presentation itself, interacting with the judge. Since this is the first and only impression that a judge will have of you and your research, you want this part to go as smoothly as possible. Dress nicely and professionally, as always, but don't look like you're going to a funeral. The first thing that a judge is going to do when they come over is that they're going to introduce themselves and give you a handshake. Do not give them an awkward handshake like this.
Hello, nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Sean.
You can practice on the people around you or your friends to hopefully give them a good handshake, like this. When presenting, try to direct the judge around the board constantly, and direct them to pictures and references to dictate the presentation and keep them from zoning out or just skipping ahead on the board. Try to keep an eye on them to make sure they're still paying attention to their presentation. In this example, the judge over here clearly gets bored, but the presenter was not paying attention.
This optimization of DSSCs through co-absorption and tri-absorption of organic dyes. The author was Ken Tisaria in 2014. There was a blend of
Great acting. Here, the presenter once again has no awareness of his judge and allows her to roam around the board, meaning that she's not listening at all to what he's saying.
Okay.
So the purpose of my study was to increase the efficiency of dyes sensitized to solar cells to a point where they can eventually be implemented as a means of
In this example, the presenter interacts well with the judge and effectively directs them around the board, resulting in the judge's undivided attention.
In Figure 4, individual layers are labeled of a tandem solar cell. In Figure 5, C. elegans in a microfluidic channel are attracted.
Judge asks you a challenging question that stumps you. Do not give up and make up an answer that is clear or wrong. But at the same time, do not hesitate with your answer if you are kind of fudging it.
So can you describe to me exactly how Dyson-type solar cells function?
So there's solar, and the cell takes the solar energy and makes it into energy.
The presenter here clearly shows his lack of knowledge on his project. The correct response would be that even if you don't know the answer, do your best, and if you still really can't think of a response, compliment the judge on the great question that stumped you. Write it down and promise to look it up immediately when you get a chance to. Answer questions using as many references as possible from your binder and using as much detail as possible.
Where did you get the inspiration for using the zinc oxide nanowire in your Dyson-type solar cell?
Well, as you can see in this study, Paul et al. Used the zinc oxide in their study for the same procedure.
This student does a good job of referencing his article and explaining to the judge where he got his procedure from. Moving on to the frequently asked questions section. There are certain questions that most judges will ask you almost certainly, and for these you should 100% have a prepared answer, as they are extremely predictable. Keep in mind that these questions are pretty open-ended, as they are general ones that give the judge more insight to your research, and they're usually ones they ask to pretty much all of their participants. So, why are you interested in the research area that you're working in? How did you come up with the idea for the project, the procedures, everything about it? What is the most important part of your research? What is the most important thing you found? What part of the study was done by you, and what part done by others? A lot of fairs like LICEF and NICEF stressed this part this year specifically. And what exactly was novel about your project, if you have novel in the title or mention it at all during it? So that's pretty much it for the frequently asked questions. Moving on to the layperson summary. This is basically a short informal rundown of your project to anyone that doesn't have an understanding of your topic area, such as friends, non-science teachers, or interviewers. Keep the language simple and don't use fancy scientific words like you would to a judge, but instead explain your purpose. Give them a simple rundown explanation of your topic and what your research signifies for the future. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and I hope I assisted you in your next year's science research presentations.